Well, here we are with another leadership vlog with Max. Wait, what's his name? John C. Maxwell.
John C. Maxwell.
This book, we are on chapter 5 and problem solving. Why don't you summarize the chapter for us, Bradley?
Problem solving, being important for leaders to be able to problem solve. He says that problem solving is a mark of a good leader, and that in order to solve problems, you need to have people with the right attitude in place who can find the right solutions to actually take care of the issues.
What would that attitude be?
So attitude is similar to what we talked about with change last week. It's flexibility, not being overwhelmed by issues when they arise, being able to quickly adapt and think ahead of the game, ahead of the curve on what could be potentially a problem down the road.
So thinking ahead and adapting.
Yep. And then I think there's a attitude part of it where it's just a positive thinking almost, where you're not seeing problems and being overwhelmed by them as something that take your control out of a situation. It's an opportunity for you to fix something or make something better, as opposed to, oh no, there's problems that are everywhere, I don't know what to do.
Right. So in your work that you do every day, how do you narrow down the scope of the problem? When you have a problem presented to you, what's the process you go through?
You have to identify the root problem. So let's say you're missing a deadline, or we had a rollout that didn't go quite as you expected it to go for whatever reason. You have to be able to ask the right questions to figure out what that reason is, to get beyond the symptoms of it. So missing a deadline is just a symptom. You need to be able to identify maybe that symptom or that problem that you see is actually because there's poor communication going on, or because job roles aren't clearly defined, or the purpose of a rollout isn't clearly defined. So you have to be able to ask those questions and sort of get to that point.
One of the things that I think he said in here that I thought was really good is that we should never solve a problem for a person, but solve a problem with a person. And I think that's really key if we're going to develop people, right?
Absolutely.
Because what we don't want is, we don't want to just jump in and have to solve the problem every time somebody messes up. We want to think ahead, we want to do all of those things, but we want to also transfer our knowledge and help them learn and grow, and not just solve the problem for them. And what comes to my mind is my grandfather. When I was growing up, I didn't know how to do a lot of things. Of course, I was a little punk kid. But he would have me over to his house, and he would teach me how to paint or teach me how to work in the garden or whatever. And he had to have a lot of patience. He could have just solved the problem and said, "Get out of the way, kid," but he didn't. He showed me how to do those things, and he had patience, and that made me a better person and really formed, my whole work ethic and how I approach problems.
Yeah.
It's huge. So I think the biggest issue, though, with problems that we see a lot is defining the problem correctly, like you said, getting to the root of it. Sometimes we make a problem out of something because we don't accept it, because we gripe about it, because we're not looking at it correctly, or we just get down in the dumps. We're like, oh, there's a problem. And so we start worrying about why the problem's there instead of solving for the problem. There's nothing we can do for the problem once it's there, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing we've learned is, you got the problem, you got to solve it.
Yep. You can't just play the blame game. You want to have somebody to blame or something to blame, but you can't stay there if you actually want to move forward.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Cool. Well, there's several steps that he goes through in chapter 5, and I want to encourage you to read those. But here's the question for everybody today. What aspect of problem solving tends to make you struggle the most? What in those steps do you kind of get hung up on? We'd love to hear your answers in the comments section. See you soon.